There's been a variety of different videos and articles looking into this idea of what it means to be a Disney adult, and as the mainstream takes a look into this particular fandom, there's often been criticism, both warranted and not. Recently, the media company Wisecrack put out a 2-part video series looking at Disney adults and what we can take away from the hardcore devoted fan base that surrounds the Disney company. As somebody who on YouTube talks about Disney and its affiliates, especially when it comes to ideas like social issues or politics or religion, I thought I would take a crack at responding to Wisecrack's series. So my name's Josh Taylor, this is Modern Mouse, and today I want to talk about Disney adults, the stigma behind that label, and if being a fan of Disney is similar to being part of a religious cult. Michael Burns from Wisecrack takes a deep dive into Disney adults, but this stems off of comments that he had previously made.
Let me explain. A couple years back, we casually discussed the phenomenon of adults who are super enthusiastic about Disney on our podcast, Culture Binge, and I shared some tongue-in-cheek thoughts about the unaccompanied olds at Disney World.
His comments were about how he didn't really understand why adults would choose to go to a Disney theme park and ride what are essentially considered children's attractions. To him, they should be spending time in conventionally adult spaces doing conventionally adult activities. This lines up with what plenty of people have said about adults that love going to Disney's theme parks or who continue to watch Disney's animated films. His comments led plenty of people to send him responses, including friend of this channel, Isaac Carlson, who, like me, has continually made a living on YouTube talking about Disney's films, television, and theme parks. While I think that responding with some kind of rebuttal isn't necessarily a bad thing, considering that I'm doing that exact same thing, there were some responses that Michael got that were more threats than anything else. And I just want to make it clear that sending somebody threats is super not cool. And if that's something that you're willing to do, I don't think I really want you here. As time has passed, Michael and the rest of the team at Wisecrack wanted to revisit this idea behind Disney adults, and they wanted to ask a question.
Are Disney adults kind of a cult? Or, put more nicely, are they inadvertently practicing their own religion? And if so, can their zealotry tell us anything interesting about modern society at large?
There's been an ongoing discussion on Twitter with whether or not people who love Disney can be considered part of some sort of religion. Professor Jody Eichler-Levine has actually been studying Disney as a religion and has been looking to put out a book on the subject matter, and Michael actually makes reference to her tweets.
In her sympathetic Twitter thread, she writes, "If we measure religion not by its truth claims, but by its power in people's lives, then Disney is as much a religion as anything. It is at the very least a site of meaning and human fellowship, even if you hate it."
The idea that Disney can be seen as a religion or a cult isn't really insane. And in fact, a lot of hobbies and fandoms line up nearly the exact same way. Michael actually ends up explaining this all perfectly, and he actually ties the idea of fans to the history of religion, and even talks about how you can be fanatical about your religious beliefs. You might know someone who wears specific underwear during game day, or you've likely talked to somebody about whether Marvel or DC is better, or why the American version of The Office is way overhyped, and how Parks and Recreation and Community were far superior shows at the time when they were all on NBC. Maybe that's just me, and maybe that's a discussion that you're not ready for, so we'll move on.
Streets Ahead is verbal wildfire.
Does it just mean cool, or is it supposed to be like miles ahead?
If you have to ask, your street's behind.
Michael turns to scholars to explain this idea that fandoms are sprouting up everywhere for every different thing, and that as culture expands over the decades, new things are popping up every day. He also brings up this idea that fans enjoy being part of fandoms and actually shaping their worldview around those fandoms, or shaping that fandom around their worldview.
Take Garrett Smith and Jason Bittner, who dressed as Woody and Buzz for their elaborate Toy Story themed wedding, remaking Disney canon to fit their love story.
Disney adults do this quite a bit, and in fact, the Disney company has been pretty great about being open to different takes from the community. Disney's friendliness to all of this has allowed it to expand in wild ways that include things like Disney bounding. It's a way to casually dress as one of your favorite characters. Or we could talk about fan fiction, or Maybe even the embracing of gay days at the theme parks, or various unsanctioned days like Bats Day or Dapper Day, or these independent artists who have their own takes on the characters, and Disney ends up promoting and selling their art through their own galleries. Michael also brings up how scholars have not traditionally seen fandoms like a religion.
This wave of scholars took a utopian view of fandom, and felt it was important not to see fans as cultish or worshipful, but as enthusiastic, thoughtful consumers of media.
Michael bringing up this idea is fascinating to me because even though we haven't treated fandoms like cults or religions, they have been sort of acting like them. Fandoms have continued to become more denominational, or tribal, or divisive the more that social media has grown.
Labeling fans as religious fanatics, he said, can also be inherently othering and stigmatizing. It makes them out to be obsessive devotees who look at Captain Kirk as a literal deity and pray to Obi-Wan Kenobi for wisdom.
I think that labeling people as fanatical or cult-like can actually be harmful, despite the fact that I named this video The Cult of Disney Adults. But one thing I think for sure is that there's this sliding scale that exists within fandom, similar to a sliding scale that also exists in religion. Some people just simply enjoy things on one side of the spectrum. With Disney, for example, people might occasionally go to the theater to see a brand new film, or they might book the occasional trip to go to a Disney theme park. But the other end of that spectrum can get very ugly, especially with people who are willing to attack others who don't like something that they do, or who in general just don't really like Disney. While I agree that we shouldn't other people or label people, there is this sliding scale between Disney fans and Disney fanatics, and I think that that has to be taken into consideration. One just simply feels more cultish than the other, and that goes for all kinds of fandoms. Star Wars, I'm very much looking at you. To outline Disney as a religion, Michael brings up anthropologist Clifford Geertz and his definition of religion with 5 different keys.
1, a system of symbols. 2, about the nature of things. 3, that inculcate dispositions for behavior. 4, through ritual and cultural performance. 5, so that the conceptions held by the group are taken as real.
These 5 different keys make a lot of sense, with the first one being extremely obvious. The symbols for Disney have always been Mickey Mouse or the castle, and no matter how you see them, they're always obvious. Like with Mickey Mouse, you could see a very detailed version of Mickey Mouse, or you can see the simple 3-ring logo that make up his face. Disney iconography is so easy to recognize that people often get it tattooed onto their bodies because they love Disney so much.
As cultural critic Henry Giroux notes, the cultural iconography of Disney renders it a purveyor of innocence and family fun. He adds that through its films, parks, and endless merchandising, Disney becomes a symbol for the security and romance of the small-town America of yesteryear.
This is a whole can of worms, so let me try and break this down as quickly and easily as I possibly can. The notion that Disney is a family entertainment company is true, and I don't actually see anything wrong with labeling them as that. Although what family entertainment actually is has shifted over the last century since Disney started, and that's just due to ever-changing cultural norms and our better understanding of humanity and our needs. My issue comes with the idea of Disney relating to innocence and the romantic view of a past America. Over the years, and especially in recent times, Disney's film division has been trying to shift their family entertainment values to be a bit more inclusive. Moana is a film where the Disney princess doesn't need love to find her happy ending. Zootopia is a film based around understanding and appreciating diversity in many ways. These newer ideas conflict with some of the romantic views of a past America. If you visited Disneyland in California or the Magic Kingdom in Florida, you enter onto Main Street USA, an early 1900s romanticized version of small-town USA. This version of America neglects to recognize the hardships of anyone that wasn't a white male during that time period. For some, this escapism is a great break from reality, but for others, it's a reminder that some people believe that the best version of America is one where they simply don't exist, or one where they have lesser rights. I've studied Walt Disney for years. I've read a lot of biographies, I've seen as many documentaries as I possibly could, and I continue to look for new information about the man. I admire him as an innovator of entertainment and as somebody who pushed the boundaries of artistry. But as time passes and I hear people bring up Walt Disney, or where they ask the question of what would Walt Disney think of the theme parks or the new movies that are coming out, I get this feeling that people are propping up Walt Disney as a symbol for their own ignorant beliefs and values surrounding minorities, poverty, and the ever-changing culture norms. Being a Disney adult is to be connected to those people who prop up these symbols in order to justify their own hate.
Still, let's be clear. Explicit references are largely absent from Disney movies. This was intentional. Disney biographer Bob Thomas notes that Walt Disney made the strategic business decision to keep religion out of his films in order to make them marketable to the widest international audience.
This goes back to the idea that fans adapt these stories to their own worldview. Because Walt Disney never really talked about his own religious views, nor did he ever blatantly talk about the religious iconography within his movies, it allows audiences to adapt these stories way easier, no matter what religious context you look at them in.
Yet there's still an argument to be made for the second qualification for religion, about the nature of things. Disney movies may not feature an explicit God figure, but many have argued that Disney effectively poached a lot of Judeo-Christian ideology while scrubbing out the actual divinity stuff.
Using words like magic or dream or believe all drum up these ideas of faith without connecting them to a singular religion, and the same can be said for the imagery of prayers and poison apples. Using classic story structures where good always wins or where happily ever after happens more often than not, it creates this desire or belief in optimism and romanticizing life. Since Disney's been around for so long, everybody that's watching this video has grown up with this company in their lives. It's shaped your worldview even if you're not necessarily a part of the Disney fandom. It's similar to religion because you probably hold certain values of morality that have been connected to faith even if you yourself aren't religious. Those values are something that you've grown up with because they've been passed down from generation to generation. And certain religions have been around so long that they've shaped humanity in ways that we don't even think about anymore. Disney has done something similar when it comes to love. Whether you're a fan or not, you've been inundated with this idea of what love and romance is because of classic Disney fairy tales. Unfortunately, not all love stories are Disney stories, and if you're like me and have had a few bad breakups, you really do understand that. But we still continue to look for love in this idealized kind of Disney romantic way. We also have distinct beliefs that the hero should always win, or that being a good person will get you further in life than being a bad person, which isn't necessarily true. But all of those ideas tie back to Disney, and even further back you can tie them to religious text. For Disney adults, they might not equate what they love to a religion, but they do carry these values with them that stem from the Walt Disney Company. And Michael brings up this idea that if Disney is a religion, then the theme parks can be considered the church.
These larger-than-life locations are seen by some scholars as akin to sacred spaces, where visitors make a pilgrimage, not unlike that of Jews to Jerusalem, or Muslims to Mecca, or American Irish Catholics to the Guinness Brewery at St. James Gate, Dublin.
A trip to a Disney theme park has become somewhat of an American tradition. Over 70% of people in the US have been to a Disney theme park at some point in their lives. And while many go and have fun and then just head home, others who are more dedicated fans do see it as a church-like place where they're more free to be themselves than they even are in the real world. While I agree with Michael that people seek out a trip to Disneyland in order to connect with the things that they like, I also know that as time has passed, that there's a distinct fan of Disney's theme parks and a distinct fan of Disney's films and television, and there are not as many as you'd think that are into both. And while I think that film and television fans can cross over into being theme park fans, I don't really see it being the other way around. Theme park fans aren't nearly as often also film and television fans. To me, and this is just my opinion, but I think that the label of Disney adult is usually more associated with theme park fans than people who watch films and television. And I think that stems from being just more visible. It's easier to spot somebody at a Disney theme park than in their living room watching The Little Mermaid. But I think that the theme parks do act more like a safe space for childhood imagination, much more so than the films, especially the recent films that seem to be dealing more and more with social issues. It might be a bit cliche to say that Disney adults are people who carry this need for escapism, or they desire a place where they can tap into their childhood imagination. That's why the romantic idea of a bygone era is just so appealing to them. It's a place where the problems of the outside world just don't exist. Taxes, bills, awkward social settings, racism, sexism, all of those things leave their mind when they enter a Disney theme park. But that's also a troublesome thought that's not necessarily based in any real value.
Historian Mike Wallace calls this commercialization of the past Mickey Mouse history, a narrative written without classes, conflict, or crime, a world of continuous consumption, a supermarket of fun. Innocence effectively becomes a magic eraser, cleansing history of its less savory moments. And these Disney narratives all come to life in its holy sites, where rituals like riding Splash Mountain, or watching sunset parades down Main Street, or getting your picture taken with the characters, or a hefty fee, all provide joy and catharsis.
I get a lot of comments on this YouTube channel critiquing Disney because of how they've addressed different social issues in their films, and Michael pointing out this idea of a Mickey Mouse history makes total sense. I don't have any numbers to back up the claim that I'm about to make, but I'm going to make it anyway, and maybe somebody out there will actually have some sort of data that backs this up. But Disney theme park fans that are just Disney theme park fans and don't necessarily cross over into the films and television are more prone to being conservative in their worldviews because the theme parks more or less cater to that worldview. That Mickey Mouse history that Michael brings up is exactly what's going on at Disney's theme parks, while in the film and television department, they've been trying to change and be more inclusive.
The park paints itself as a place of transcendence, of elevation beyond the mundanity of everyday life, which brings us to stipulation 5, so that the conceptions held by the group are taken as real.
Having nostalgia for a bygone time is pretty normal for a Disney adult. After all, they're probably looking or hearkening back to a time period where they first went to a Disney theme park or first saw a Disney movie. That also explains why, despite Walt Disney saying that Disneyland or any of his theme parks would always change as long as there's imagination in the world, Disney adults are reluctant to any changes that come to their magical church. That can be seen on a bigger level, like the demolition or changing of an attraction like Splash Mountain, or on a smaller level, like the simple changes of a menu to a restaurant. I also see Disney fans commonly getting upset about the Disney parks and how they just aren't what they used to be, because they don't bring up this idea of childlike wonder and imagination in them any longer. It begs to bring up the question of whether or not Disney has changed too much, or whether it becomes more difficult to tap into that childlike wonder the more often that you go and immerse yourself in it.
As American Studies scholar Eric Smoodin puts it, Disney constructs childhood so as to make it entirely compatible with consumerism.
I've never seen a group of people complain about ticket prices while simultaneously booking their next trip for a family of 4 on a Disney vacation. And this is something that just doesn't happen at other theme parks like Universal or Cedar Point. On the other side of this, Disney has done such a good job in creating a cult-like following that they can't keep up with the demand for the space in their parks. That's why things like the reservation system or price hikes often happen. And despite the complaints, people are still going as often as possible. Disney knows that it can sell people on the escape, even if that escape has continually minimized over time. I also don't want to fully blame Disney or any of its fans here, and I don't want to be overly negative, because I myself could be considered a Disney adult. I can also point out the need for a place like Disneyland, because the world feels like it's increasingly more cruel. Thanks to social media and 24-hour news stations, we're constantly being crushed by the world around us, being told about all the horrible things that are currently happening. As humans, we respond more to terrible news than positive news, and the media conglomerates that we see daily know that. That's why it feels daunting to scroll through social media, or why there's always some sort of awful breaking news on TV. The uptick in Disney's theme park ticket sales coincides with all of this, because people are looking for an escape. They're looking for the good old days that don't remind them of how scary the world is, or at least how we perceive it to be.
In our world of rapidly evolving mass communication, pop culture is a central way for young people to learn about themselves, their relationship to others, and the larger world.
While this is true and basically what Modern Mouse is modeled after, Michael goes on to talk about how Disney is teaching individualist consumption over anything else, and I couldn't disagree more with that. If you take a look at the larger Disney conglomerate, there are people at the studio who are creating stories that are trying to give us lessons to better our lives. And those different life lessons are always something that I've been on the lookout for and is part of the Modern Mouse model. And does Disney charge money to see those stories? Yes, but every other studio or anybody else telling stories charges money too. Now, I don't want to be labeled as an apologist for capitalism, but I do think that the writers and animators and working class at Disney are striving to tell stories that make the world a better place. The company's current values surrounding inclusivity or being accepting of all peoples is a great reminder of that. I'll stand by the idea that Disney stories are a great way to learn about ourselves, as are stories from anywhere. I think this also falls back to the idea that we shape things around our lives and we seek out the things that we need. Pixar's Luca, for example, was not written to be a gay story according to its writer and director, but so many LGBTQ folks saw themselves in those characters that it's actually become a story of representation for them.
At their parks, we can enjoy all the spiritual and ecstatic feeling of religious worship without having any of the moral or ethical responsibility that religion imposes upon us.
I think that this is a false narrative that represents anybody who isn't religious in a bad light. Stating that Disney is a church without morals or ethics also conjures up ideas that people who are atheists or even agnostic don't have any morals or ethics themselves. If we're going to compare Disney to religion, then we have to look at their films and television stories as scripture. Within stories that are associated with Disney, you'll find a bunch of different comparisons to the morals that you can find in religious texts. Honesty, kindness, and valuing others are all good lessons to learn from Disney films.
Disney is not trying to be a religion, but its tactics and the reception it receives from fans often takes on a spiritual tinge. Disney's interests are well served when people buy its products, but its interests are best served when a consumption-driven population is more concerned with having fun at Disney World than, say, with the labor rights of the workers making the park happen in the first place.
While this might be true for some people, the Disney adults that I often associate with or talk to on a daily basis are very aware of the corporate issues that Disney has. It's why many would state that the most magical part of the theme park experience is the frontline workers at the park. I and like-minded others carry a huge amount of respect for anyone working at Disney because they're not paid enough for the work that they do, and I'll gladly sit out on a chance to go to the park if there was a major strike in favor of paying better wages. The same can be said for those who work in animation or whatever other facet of the company. Michael then goes on to talk about how religion itself has become much more capitalistic since the end of World War II. Looking at Christianity, for example, we can see all of the different books and movies and music that are being sold to Christians.
In this way, as sociologist Peter L. Berger has observed, religious institutions become marketing agencies, and the religious traditions become consumer commodities. And a good deal of religious activity comes to be dominated by the logic of market economies.
There is a blurry line between fandoms and religion. Those who go to Comic-Con can be looked at in the same way as those who attend Easter church service. Each is trying to sell you on something. Each is about building enthusiasm around what they're trying to sell you on. While certain aspects of this are all very wholesome and welcoming, there is definitely a worse side to this.
No matter what, just about every major institution you're engaging with is inevitably shining their lights towards the goodness of our one true God, capital. And as for Disney adults, are they part of a religion? Nah, not by our estimations. But are they an excellent example of the porousness between consumerism and spirituality that characterizes this moment in time? Almost certainly.
The ultimate idea that Michael settles on is that Disney is not a religion, but like all fandoms, and that includes religion, they fall to the altar of capitalism. We buy into the things that we want because we like how they make us feel. Whatever things that you buy into usually dictate some of the values that you carry with you through life. Disney adults are just that. It might be weird to some that people enjoy cosplaying as Elsa, or that people like myself often talk about animation and cartoons on the internet, or that childless millennials are spending all of their money at Disneyland. But in the end, it's what makes those people happy, and it's the form of values and morality they've chosen to have in their lives. Going back to the sliding scale idea, there are people that would be deemed problematic in any fandom, but labeling someone that's within that fandom forces them to look at the best and worst parts of it. While that does sort of seem like a bad thing because I don't necessarily like being told who I am, I think that it does give a sense of ownership in these spaces that clearly need to be cleaned up. For instance, being labeled as a Disney adult has always felt a bit gross to me, because I didn't want to be associated with the extremism of the spectrum of Disney fans. But ultimately, if somebody is going to reach out and pull those people away from the extremes that they're at, it would be somebody who is like-minded and in that same fandom. Do I like the idea that people are willingly misogynistic in their views on old Disney movies, or even on their views on new Star Wars and Marvel movies? Absolutely not. But I am the person that has the tools and bandwidth to reach out to those people. I'm likely to be the person that has the talking points that can convert somebody to understanding that those issues and their view on them isn't so great. In conclusion, being labeled a Disney adult, or anything really, isn't necessarily a bad thing. And rather than pointing the fingers back at those that label us, I think that we should look inward and talk about why we think those labels are bad to begin with. And we should be working on fixing the problems that are associated with those labels, so that when somebody does call us out, we aren't really embarrassed or ashamed to be connected to it. That's all I've got this week. Thank you so much for watching this. Leave your thoughts about what it means to be a Disney adult to you, and labeling people in different fandoms, or if you do see Disney as more of a cult or a religious type of thing. I'd love to know your ideas around all of this. And until next time, you could check out another video that I have here, or another one here if you'd like, and make sure to be subscribed to the channel if you haven't already. And until next time, my friends, thank you. Keep moving forward.